Hi, everyone. I'm Carly.
And I'm Sophia.
And this is Away She Goes, a podcast from Girls Who Travel.
Each episode will help you feed your wanderlust with travel tips, stories, inspiration, and more. Away she goes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Away She Goes. Today, Sophia and I are joined by Kristen Van Nest. Did I pronounce that right? I should have probably checked before I did my intro. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. And she is going to talk to us about the highs and lows and kind of what to expect when living abroad. So, Kristen, I'm going to let you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. If you wouldn't just mind including where you're currently living, how long you lived abroad, and what your passport origin is, your nationality.
Hey, yeah, I'm American and I'm currently living in Los Angeles. And I have lived I lived in Shanghai for 3.5 years, working in the wine industry. And then I lived in Luxembourg for a year doing a Fulbright scholarship. And then in high school, I lived in Paris for a month one summer and in Switzerland for a month, like living with host families and studying French. So I have moved abroad multiple times. And yes, I have like advice for people because when you think of moving abroad, you're like, oh, this will be so cool. I'll be in another country and I'll just eat a croissant every morning. And then there definitely is a transition period of getting used to that experience. And it can be really sad and lonely. And then it gets fun, I promise.
So it sounds like some of the move was for studying abroad, but as an adult, it sounds like it was for work. Is that correct for both of them?
So yeah, for the Fulbright, I got a grant through the State Department. So basically the US government paid for me to go abroad, which if you can get a grant, do it. Just apply to all of them. And then with moving to Shanghai, I actually moved there. I didn't have any job. I didn't have a place to live. I just headed over on a tourist visa and was staying on my friend's couch who ended up not being there when I arrived. So I just literally showed up and this like beautiful Norwegian woman who's his girlfriend who I'd never met was like, I heard you're staying with me. I'm moving out of this apartment in 3 days into a new one. And I was like, great. Okay. I'll try and find home really fast. And then luckily I was able to find a job and kind of settle in and stay there for 3.5 years.
Got it. Okay.
Cool.
So the original plan was just kind of go as a tourist and then it kind of fell into your lap to stay longer.
No, I was planning on moving there. I just was like, I will figure it out upon arrival.
Got it.
Making life as complicated as possible. Why not?
We love it. We love it.
So how tough was the organizing of the whole thing, like moving to Shanghai?
Yeah. So I would say, packing and stuff's like pretty easy because you just bring whatever you can bring in like 2 check bags, basically. For preparing to move to a country where I didn't really speak the language, I started studying Chinese. I like Memrise is a really good site. They have like flashcards. So it's really easy to learn languages through that. And my prep for that is I was living in New York at the time and I was just kind of bored, like didn't connect with a lot of my friends. I just come back from the Fulbright. I'd had this amazing international experience and I just was like, I can't be in the US right now. So I went and I interviewed every single person that someone knew that lived in Asia, all over Asia, like, oh, you have a friend who's like a journalist in Cambodia. Can I talk to them? And I just did Zoom calls with as many people as possible. And Shanghai seemed to be the most like New York City, which I was living in at the time. I had a background in marketing and it's like, the port to China. So I was like, okay, let's just do it. And then once I decided on Shanghai, I just was like any single person I met anywhere. I was like, I'm moving to Shanghai. And a weird amount of people were like, oh, I know someone there. And I was like, cool, can you give me their email? Like I basically had a full spreadsheet of people where I just like when I arrived, I was like, hey, I just moved to Shanghai. I'm planning on living here for a while. Like I'd love to grab coffee or drinks or something. Like, would you be willing to just chat with me? And that was really my runway. And for Luxembourg, which is very like Luxembourg's a tiny country, so it was really hard to meet people there.
Mm-hmm.
I had one work colleague of the job that I was leaving to move to Luxembourg who knew one person, and he introduced me to that one person that he'd met at a party, and that person introduced me to all of their friends. And then I never saw them again, but I hung out with their friends for the rest of my time there. Like, I think I ran into them in a club one time and was like, Max, and was like, thanks for helping me find friends. And he's like, sure. And like that, it just worked out. So, um, I think the like harder part of moving abroad is like really getting into a rhythm and making your home, like making friends and making, a support network. And whenever people move abroad, I always say, like, the first 3 months are really sad and depressing. You're alone. You don't understand how anything works. In China, I miss comfort food. And so I go to Family Mart and they have these little pink hot dogs. And I'm like, oh, I know hot dogs. I know hot dogs. And so, I buy one and it bite into it. It's sweet. It's like a piece of candy. When you're
Oh,
expecting a hot dog and I was just like, ugh, and I like literally
oh
threw it out.
no.
It wasn't bad tasting. It's just like, it wasn't what I
That's not what you
expected.
wanted.
Yeah, I was
Right.
like, no, I need like a ballpark Frank that like reminds me of America. So I think finding the network is can be really hard, but is a great way to kind of like get yourself so that you're settled in. And so yeah, I always tell people like stick out the first couple months. It doesn't if the first couple months are really sad and lonely, it doesn't mean that your whole experience in that country is going to be like that. It's just you don't have the setup you had at home. And another thing, I talk about this. I had a friend who moved abroad in my book. Oh, I forgot to mention my book in the beginning. I'm the author of Where to Nest, A Global Search for Love, Cheap Wine, and a Place to Belong, which is my comedic travel memoir. So I had a friend, I have a chapter in there that's like a friend breakup because I feel like that's everything like we all deal with like kind of
Those suck.
Oh yeah.
they're worse than
They
like
are than
romantic
relationships.
stuff. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
so sad. But I had a friend and she had moved abroad and she was struggling because also with all of her friends at home, she was like, hey, I write them and I try and talk to them and they don't really respond quickly. And I was like, I hate to say this, but you're not part of their everyday life anymore.
Hmm.
You're not there to grab drinks with them and kind of like vent about work. And so like because you're abroad, like there is going to be a little bit of a disconnect there and it's nothing personal. And for me at this point in my life, I have friends all over the world and I will not talk to them for years. And then I'll be like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm in your country. And it's like great. And like a
Hmm.
good friendship, it just like snaps back to where you saw them last.
Yeah, you pick right back
I
up.
love those.
Yeah. So those first couple months can be really hard. And it's just really important to set your expectations that it's going to be like that. And then I promise things get better and it's fun.
Oh yes,
How?
I absolutely love that because when I moved abroad, all your friends will tell you, "Oh, I'll come visit." No one ever comes fucking
No, they
visit.
don't.
No, no, nope.
Well, especially like if you're in Shanghai, like that's,
Oh yeah, that's a trip.
like it's a yeah, I even experienced that with people being like, "Oh, I'll travel with you," and with the exception of like one person, shout out to my best friend who always travels with me. Um, yeah, they never do. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'll go travel with you," and I'm like, "Okay," and
Yeah.
then
Also,
they never
like
do.
traveling is a great like way to like make or break a friendship.
Yes,
Hmm.
we've talked about that
Oh yeah.
plenty.
Oh yeah. Like
Yes.
my best friend and I had known each other at the time for a couple of weeks. I was planning to go to Iceland solo, and I was like having dinner with this group of people, including this person who I just met, and was like telling them, "Oh, I'm going to Iceland." And like as the evening wore on, she was like thinking, and she's like, "I've always wanted to go. Like, can I come with you?" And I was like, "Sure, stranger." So 4 months later, we went to Iceland, had the best, and I was like, this could have gone
Oh
so
yeah.
like, but we travel. We've done Vietnam, we've done Bar Harbor, Maine. Like we travel together now, and we travel very well together. So it just kind of worked out.
Yeah, once you find those like ideal travel partners, it's so great. I have a friend from Shanghai, and I didn't even realize her and I have probably been traveling together at least once or twice a year for years now. I was visiting her in Sweden, and I was like, Oh my God, I've traveled more with you than anyone else, even my own boyfriend. Like we travel a ton together, but it just happens to be that she'll be like, "Oh, I'm in Seattle." And I'll be like, "Okay, I'll fly up." Or like, we'll be like near each other regionally and we'll be like, "Okay, I'll just take, a flight over to London or a flight over to Sweden." And it's just so easy traveling together that anytime she's somewhere, I'm like, "Great, sign me up."
Perfect.
Yeah.
How how long did it take you roughly? I know each time was probably a little different. Like I'm gonna assume that like Shanghai maybe took more time to adjust to than like Luxembourg maybe did. But like it roughly how long did it kind of take you to really kind of settle in and kind of have a group of friends and like find a routine and not feel so lonely anymore?
Yeah, I think Shanghai, it was probably like 6 months. Luxembourg, I feel like
Wow.
it was 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was there's meeting friends, which like luckily I had my little Excel spreadsheet and also I moved in with like two rugby players. So they're out all the time and they have a crew through sports. So I was very fortunate in that that kind of set me up with like a good group that was going out all the time. But then there's also like getting into your daily routine and things like that and kind of figuring out, especially when there's a language barrier. I wrote an essay for the Rumpus about my first Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I wanted to bring a pumpkin pie to Thanksgiving because it just like it doesn't need to be a good one, but it's just like pumpkin spice, like anything pumpkin,
Pumpkin.
like that
Yeah.
is the flavor of America, and I need it. I don't care if it's basic. Like when you're abroad, you miss those like nostalgia things.
Hmm.
And in Shanghai, goldfish crackers were like $8 because they're like imported
My
from
God.
Yeah.
America. And the amount, like, I've probably spent over $1,000 on goldfish
Just on
crackers alone
goldfish.
because it's just like my like go-to when you need
Hmm.
like a comfort food. But anyway, I just really wanted a pumpkin pie. I went to the Japanese market, the Spanish market, the US market, the avocado lady, which is this like random lady who has avocados which you can't get in China. And other like random things and couldn't find it and just broke down crying. And I was
Oh,
like, I'm crying over a pie. My roommates were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like,
no.
"Yeah, I'm not okay. Like, I can't find a pie." And so, like, I feel like some of those things of just like, oh, the things that you turn to normally when you are sad or like you just want to pick me up or whatever, like none of that's there.
Well, and you
Um,
take for granted having it. Like right now, I'm in upstate New York. I could go to the store and buy a pumpkin pie if I or a hot dog if I wanted one. Like you take for granted that it's available and it's not.
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
never just like one thing. It probably wasn't just you weren't probably just upset about the pumpkin pie. You were upset about the pumpkin pie and then the hot dog and everything. Because that's always
Yeah.
what gets you like none of your
Really
comfort
just
food's
food.
available.
Yeah.
Just the food, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there's like a ton of kind of steps and that's where I think and also when I was meeting with people from my little spreadsheet, one girl was like, "You need to make your apartment as as Western and American as possible." And I think a funny thing is like when we travel abroad, people are like, yeah, or at least for me, I want to experience the local culture. I want to like
Hmm.
go all
Yeah.
in. But when you're transitioning into living abroad, no, don't do that.
Hmm.
Like you need to have those things that kind of remind you at home. So she gave me the advice. She was like, your apartment should feel like you're back in America so that when you do have one of those days where just like as an example, like trying to find balloons to bring to a party in China. Like Google Maps is blocked by, the firewall. Like
Hmm.
they don't have balloon store or what I
Hmm.
don't even know what you search. Party city.
Hmm.
Like, they don't have that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so when you have one of those days where like a tiny little errand suddenly takes you 2 hours and you don't find what you need to go back to somewhere that just feels comforting. And so that was really good advice. And I've kept that, whenever throughout everything, I always just like make sure that my home feels like my home country. So that I can just kind of like have that safe space, I guess.
Absolutely. That's good advice. What did your job hunt look like? I remember you said that you kind of went specifically to Shanghai on a tourist visa, but kind of knowing that you were gonna kind of play it by ear and just kind of stay there a little longer? What did that look like?
Yeah. So when I first arrived, I had a couple friends who knew writers over there, and I had a small writing background. I didn't have that much experience, but I kind of used freelance gigs at the beginning just to hold myself over. But a lot of the clock is ticking where you're like, okay, I'm spending all this money. You're like, I have to go out and meet people, so I'm spending money on drinks and food and coffee. And when am I gonna find an income?
Hmm.
So I just kind of kept talking to people. And I also there's like internations and a lot of like Eventbrite. Like there's a lot of sites where expats kind of
Hmm.
can connect, you know. So I used a lot of those and was able to kind of like meet people. And then when I was doing that, I would be like, oh, I'm looking for a job if you know any place looking. So luckily I met the marketing director for the largest wine importer there, and she had just moved there. So she was on the same boat as me, where like she was meeting people because she didn't know anyone. And I was like, oh, I love, I'm in marketing and I love wine. My senior thesis was on wine. And so luckily she took a chance and hired me, which was great. They needed someone who, especially like in countries, I think import industries are really good to look into because they need like a bridge between the two. So with the wine industry, a lot of my job was having foreigners. I did US, Australian, and New Zealand wine, having them come in. They don't know anything about China. They don't know how to navigate China.
Hmm.
And being that kind of like bridge
Hmm.
between the foreign customer and the local customer. So luckily that was a great role for me because I'm a Westerner, but I also was like learning how China worked and understanding how the market worked there. So I could kind of like be the liaison that helps them enter the market. And I got to drink a lot of really great wine, which I'm never going to complain about.
You and my mom would be really good friends. My mom loves wine,
Amazing.
loves it. I like it, but not as much as she does.
It's once you get into it, like the tough thing is it costs so much money to like just try a
It's
million
an
wines, which
expensive
is really
hobby.
cool. It's an expensive
Yeah.
hobby. So working in the industry and being the person that I am, I was like, I really think that I need wine training. Like once a week, we just need to really open up some really good bottles of wine so that I
Just
can
try
do my
them.
job properly. And they said yes. And they did a whole training for the whole team. And I was like, amazing. This is great.
Nice.
Um,
Wow.
but yeah, it's an expensive hobby, but once you get into it, it's really fun.
Hmm. Agreed.
Just kind of like when it's training your tongue to be like, oh, this is chocolate or this is cherry, and understanding all the different components.
My mom will bring me wine tasting with her. So I part of obviously what you do in a wine tasting is you smell it as well. I can get the taste pretty spot on, but when you smell it, I'm like, oh, I get like this, and this. Even the people at the wineries are like, wow, like they're impressed by me. And I'm like, I don't know why. Like I
You
didn't
must have a
train.
really good, yeah, nose.
I just have like a really good palate for it. Yeah. For whatever reason.
Amazing. That's a
My mom
great party
always
trick
jokes.
skill.
It is every time we go to a winery, my mom's like, okay, you're gonna impress the people now. And I'm like, yeah, probably. Like,
She's
and I
like,
do
do the
every
thing, get us
yeah,
free. Then maybe
yeah,
they'll give us an extra glass.
like every time they're like, wow, like that's really good. And I'm like, I don't know why, but it's a weird talent that I have, I guess. It's a good one.
Nice. I'm jealous.
So I want to circle back to I want to circle back to something that you said earlier about living with roommates, and I think that's already a great tip to how to get friends when you're living abroad, living with roommates. I love that about my time in Oslo. It came with an apartment of 6 people, three of them good friends, the other, not so much. So do you have any other tips on how to make friends abroad?
Oh, yeah. Well, first on roommates, the final chapter of my book is about the nightmare roommate who, when I moved to LA and was adjusting to here, yeah, I moved in with a girl who was like an alcoholic and crazy. So that's the story in my book. But I feel like roommates are a great way to kind of transition in. Other ways to make friends, I'd say going to a lot of those like kind of like global expat networking events as like a first step. It's really important to meet locals, and but I also think, like I was saying, you need that kind of comfort network for when you're going through. In China, we called them China problems because it was just, which was basically the word for um a foreigner not understanding why something works a specific way in China. And
Mhm.
every country has that, like, where it's like, why does it work this way? Like there's like a frustration from what you're used to. Um, so a lot of those expat events are great. If you are working somewhere, colleagues are great, or if you're going to school, meeting people at school. For meeting locals, I think it's also fun to like see if there's any classes of like how to learn things or something like that locally. With the language barrier, that can be a little bit tough if you don't speak the local language. But I really think it's just basically going out all the time. And with my Luxembourg experience, it was like I said, I met one person and then he introduced me to all of his friends. So it's like if someone invites you to a party, like how can you meet everyone there? If I were moving to Paris, I'd be like, start smoking. I don't know. I like, I don't want to, I would never encourage someone to
No, thank
smoke, but
you.
yeah, I lived in Paris for a semester. I didn't smoke, but I was like, I could have made so many friends if
Right,
in
if you'd
between
had.
classes I was just like
Right.
standing out there. Like, I kind of wish I had like fake cigarettes,
I mean,
like
you can
just
just
prop
stand there.
cigarettes.
That's what I did in London. All my friends in London
Oh,
at language school were the smoking girls from Spain. But I stood
oh
outside
yeah.
with them and just stood like upwind where I wasn't getting much of the smoke.
Stood upwind.
And they were
Just
like,
like inhaled a chocolate bar. It was like, yeah.
yeah.
Get those like candy
Oh,
cigarettes.
yeah. Just you, they're
Just
like, why are
pretending.
you eating your cigarette?
Yeah, why are you chewing on
Donut.
it? Why do it
See,
This
one of my
isn't how you
friends
do
wouldn't have
it.
questioned it because she wasn't smoking because she was addicted. She just generally loved tobacco. So she's like, I would eat it if I could. Like,
Oh God.
okay.
Oh
I wonder if
no.
her like perfume of choice is like tobacco scented and
Yeah,
she's
right?
like,
Like
I
those
just need to be
manly
bathed
colognes.
in
Probably.
this.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to think what else. I guess when I moved to LA, I was doing the improv school here, so that was really fun. And in Shanghai, I also did stand up and improv, so I made friends through that. Because I will say, like, when I moved to Shanghai, all my friends were the rugby players, but they drink a lot.
Yes, they
And
do.
they were like, you should join the women's rugby team. And I was like, look at I'm 5'4". I will be crushed like a potato chip. Like, there's no way that I'm doing that. And when I moved to Shanghai or LA, another friend was like, you should do CrossFit. And I'm like, that's a
Oh
cult. I'm
God.
not ready to join. I can't do that. But I feel like those kind of things like sports and like activities like that are also fun, especially if you can find people who have a similar interest to you, because then you can kind of like bond over that when you have nothing to talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's like partner sports. Because I remember in Norway, I
Yeah.
went to boxing. I usually went with my American friend, but then she had knee surgery. So then I went by myself and then I made a Norwegian friend.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah,
have to be
Norway
two
guys are really
people.
helpful.
Oh,
Oh,
that's right.
yeah, that makes sense.
Did you ever, at any point, at any of the places you moved, like, did you ever hit a low point where you seriously were like, that's it, I'm packing, I'm going home? Like, did you ever really like come close to pulling the plug on it, or were you always like, no, okay, even though
Mm.
I'm going through like a tough point, I'm gonna stick it out kind of thing?
Yeah, it was funny when how when I moved to Shanghai, I talked to all these people, and one girl was leaving and very unhappy. And she was like, when you tell people you're going to leave here, they're all going to forget about you and not want to hang out anymore, which I didn't have that experience. But one thing she said was, there's going to be a point that you hit living here because it's so different where
Mhm.
you have to leave. Like, you're just like, I'm out. And I was like, she's just bitter. That'll never happen to me. Nope, she was right. She was right. So I was there for 3.5 years, and most expats are on 2 to 3 year contracts. So suddenly that network and that support system that I met when I arrived, gone.
Hmm.
And so it was really like this big question. And I remember one of my first Easters in Shanghai, sitting across from a guy who'd lived there for 8 years. And he's like, so what are you doing in Shanghai? Doing all those questions that are like, introductory. And I was like, do I want to do that again? Go through that whole process.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, not really. Like, I love the city here, but it's kind of in my life. I'm ready to wrap up this chapter. And the things that were like fun quirks are now like a little frustrating, or just like I'm not getting the same level of fulfillment and challenge and happiness that the city used to bring me.
Hmm.
So I visited LA with my family for Christmas, and I went a week early and took an improv class. And in my improv class were two Disney princesses, like full time Elsa and Milan. That's their
That's
job.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
And
so
I was like,
cool.
I don't think I want to be a Disney princess, but apparently in LA, you can be whatever you want. So I was just like, oh, I guess, this is my new home now. So it's kind of like in Shanghai, I started to feel those feelings that she told me would come, but never leave a ship because it's sinking. Leave a ship because you have a new ship to get on. So I was like, even if I don't want to live in Shanghai, I need to find a new place I want to live. And like, luckily, LA really was clear that that was my thing. So I got home from my trip. Within a month, I had packed everything and left Shanghai. And it
Wow.
took a month because I needed to get a vaccine, or a rabies vaccine for my
Mm.
cat, which was like a whole thing. But
Oh yeah.
I was like, baby girl's coming.
She's coming home.
So
I know
yeah,
I've seen her behind you a couple times when we've been
yes, she's
recording. Oh,
I'm
hello.
most dedicated to her. She's the love of my life.
Aw.
You
Do you
could
have
be on the
anything to say,
podcast
Nala?
too. What would you like to add? My cousin has a cat named Nala also.
Oh, after the best Disney princess. She's just purring. She's like, okay, do I get a kitty treat?
We are going to be on the podcast now.
Yeah, I got her like a month before I was leaving because I was like, all right, maybe I'll stay a little longer. Like,
Mhm.
I do like
Mhm.
it here, like there are redeeming qualities, and I didn't want to like, I was in denial that I wanted to leave.
Got it.
And then I was like, okay, I'm leaving, but now I've adopted this cat and I can't leave her behind. So I guess she's coming.
She's coming with me.
Yeah. And she's like, who is this woman bringing me to another country? What's
Yeah, where are we
happening?
going?
I can't meow English.
When I first moved back, like reverse culture shock's also a big thing. When I
Yeah.
first moved back, I would see
Mhm.
cats and I'd be like, Momo. And they'd be like, what the fuck? I'd be like, but it was like in China, you had to say like it in Chinese. And so they would just be like, crazy, running. No. And I was like, all right, I have to speak English again. Cats.
You've given a ton of really, really good advice. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you think is important for people to know if they're thinking about moving abroad?
Mm, I think it's important to think about your relationship with the place. Because I do notice like there are people who move abroad and kind of see it as like, I would say like taking from the country. Like, I'm gonna just live my own life here and I'm not gonna really give back. And I'm just gonna have my same friends that I had in my home country, but in another country. And so I think it's important to think about like, how are you going to integrate with the city? How are you going to like become as a citizen of the world? How are you going to kind of give back and make sure that it's not just like a one-way relationship? I don't think that's fair for the home country, and I don't think that's good just for like cross-cultural dialogue and relation, like how people view your country and just being a good person, I guess. So I think it's important to think about like, it's not just moving there for your own reasons. I mean, that's part of it, but how do you fit in there, and how can you be appreciative of the place that you're living?
I like that. Um, some very nice last words, although they're not really last words, because I was going to ask you if you can please tell listeners where they can find you online, on social media. Again, your book is called Where to Nest. I just looked it up and put it on my TBR because I'm a sucker for travel memoirs.
Same.
Yeah, it's really fun too if you like audiobooks, because I read the audiobook, and so
Ooh.
I wrote all the jokes, but then you can hear it the way that I designed it to be heard.
Sold.
So That's yeah, if you're traveling and you're in the airport or whatever, that's a good option. And then I'm online as just my name at Kristen Van Nest on like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, X, Threads, wherever you do it. I do a lot of like comedy videos. So if you like humor, that's definitely something to check out. And yeah, those are the main.
Perfect.
Nice. Thank you very
All
much for
right.
coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was super fun.
That's all for this episode. If you'd like more Away She Goes in your life, make sure to stop by girlswhotravel.org/podcast. That's where you can fill out a form if you're interested in being a guest on the show. You can also write to us at awayshegosgwt@gmail.com or leave us a message on our Google voicemail from any phone or computer at 1-563-503-6323. To follow our adventures, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Carly Sees the World. Carly is spelled Carli.
You can also follow me at Sophia AEZ, Sophia with a PH. Away She Goes is part of Girls Who Travel, a community dedicated to radically redefining travel to be inclusive, sustainable, and empowering. You can learn more about GWT, find travel tips and support, shop travel themed items made by GWT members, and join our Facebook group with nearly 100,000 women all around the world at girlswhotravel.org. We can't wait to connect and explore with you. Away she goes.